'Tis the season to prepare for Christmas. There's nothing like a great little mystery to get us started. This is part 1 of our 5-part series that's completely free at Fat Quarter Shop. It's called Evergreen. We hope you join us for this very merry quilt and stitch along. So what you're going to do is go to fatquartershop.com, download your fabric requirements. In your fabric requirements, it's going to tell you what you need. It's layer cake friendly. You don't need the full layer cake, but we use the leftover pieces on the backing, so you'll love that. So very simple fabric requirements. You'll also download part 1, and just so you guys know, this is a row quilt. So if you've never done a row quilt, you'll love it. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single bit of this Christmas quilt. Now, let's get sewing with the brand new Favorite Things collection by Sherry and Chelsea for Moda. Okay, so once you've downloaded your pattern, we're gonna start on week 1 tucked under the tree. So just so you guys know, this is the base of the tree, and then the rest of the mystery will be built upwards. So your fabric A is going to be your background. Your fabric B's through F are your tree print. And then all of your G, H, and I, those come from your layer cake, so you can always mix and match if you don't like the prints that we picked. Now this quilt is very beginner friendly because we're just using corner squares and 1/4 inch seams, nothing crazy, nothing too fancy. We need to make some flying geese units. You're gonna take your fabric D rectangles and your fabric G squares, and we're gonna make them the traditional way, and we're gonna make 5 total. I'm gonna show you how to make 1. Now, just so you guys know, there is enough fabric if you would prefer to use the 1.5 by 3 inch finished flying geese paper. There's enough fabric for that, so that's also an option. So what I'm gonna do here is we're gonna make 1. You're gonna take your fabric G on the wrong side, draw a line from corner to corner. I usually start my flying geese on the right side. I think it's because I'm right-handed, but I'm just gonna pin this in place and I'm gonna stitch directly on the line. Now, if you've never made flying geese where you pin a lot, you're gonna get more accurate results. So we're gonna go to the sewing machine and stitch directly on the line. Now, if you leave your pins in place while you're sewing, you're gonna also get more accurate results. From here, we're gonna trim a 1/4 inch away. You're going to set your seam, press toward the background, and once you've done that, then you'll add the second side, and I'm also going to pin that in place. And you shouldn't see your fabric on the back from the front or vice versa, so I'll show you that in a second. So you can't see the white and you can't see the green. Again, trim a 1/4 inch away. Set your seam, press to one side, and this should measure 2 by 3.5. So what I'm going to do is use a Creative Grits ruler, line it up 2 by 3.5, and I'm just going to trim the excess. Now this one came out exactly 2 by 3.5, but sometimes they don't, and if you trim before the next step, it will really help you. So we're going to make 5 of those. And you're going to press all of them the same exact way. So these are the 5 that we're going to do. So we're going to place 3 flying geese with 3 fabric E on each side. And then we're going to place 2 flying geese with 2 fabric Fs on each side. And I'm going to go ahead and pin all of these. So when I go to the sewing machine, all I have to do is sew with a 1/4 inch seam. So again, 3 one way and then 2 another. You just follow your pattern. It's going to be steps 2 and steps 4 on page 2. Okay, and now that I have everything pinned, I'm going to change my foot to a 1/4 inch foot and sew all these seams with a 1/4 inch seam. So I chain pieced all these together. Now I'm just going to clip them apart and do the other side. And I'm using color 2000 of Aurifil thread today. That's generally what I use when I piece quilts. Now from here, you're just going to set your seams. Set your seams just means you heat the seam before you press it to one side, and we're going to press toward the green. And you'll notice I did steps 2 and step 4 at the same time. So generally when I look at a pattern, anything that has a similar step, I'll try to combine just to make it go a little bit faster. So now we're going to go to step 3, and that's going to use the squares. You're going to make sure your flying geese point is at the bottom, and then you're going to be adding fabric B, rectangles to the top, and fabric I, rectangles to the bottom. So we're going to do this first, and we're going to set aside these for later. So here what we're going to do is put these right sides together, pin all 3 of these, and then I'll sew these, press, and then we'll add the fabric B's last. And here, right here, you can see this little red is pulling over. If you see that poking through, pull and put a pin here, and that will help it end up in the right spot and not pull. And for these small gifts, we used 3 different reds, but of course you could use any colors you would like. So now I'm going to set the seam on the red side, press toward the red, and right here your little point should match up. Now we're going to add our fabric B's to the top. So now we have that done. I feel like we can also do the next step, which is our smaller bows, which are B, and our pinks and grays, which are our H's. So we can just put these here, and what you'll need to do is rotate your gift, because I was thinking, oh, they don't match. So here you're just going to do this seam, and we can do that at the same time just to save time and make it a little bit more efficient. So our first units, you set your seam, press toward the green, and these are making cute little gifts. They look a lot harder than they really are. That just took a very little time. Now on these, you're going to press toward the pink and gray and away from the bow. And when you're looking at this, you just want to make sure you don't chop these off, and you want to make sure you don't chop these points off. So we've got 5 gifts started. So now we're going to start assembling our row. So it was really as simple as that. 3 larger gifts, 2 smaller gifts, and I'm going to go ahead and move toward our larger board so I have a little bit more room. I'm just going to follow the pattern since I am using the same exact fabric. And really what we did here is we alternated reds, pinks, and grays. So we just kind of alternated our colors. And so that is the look of the gift. Small, large, small, large, small. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pin these 2 together. And there are no seams to line up here, which is really nice. So I'm going to pin these 2 together. And then I'm going to pin these 2 together, and I'm going to leave the middle one unpinned. And you'll see why I do that in a second. It just makes it go a little bit faster. And this quilt is really nice because it's very simple. Very few seams that you need to line up. There's going to be only 1 seam you need to line up, and it's going to be on the last step. So now we're going to sew these seams. Now from here, it really doesn't matter which way you press. I'm just going to press toward the taller ones, but it really doesn't matter which way you press. So now from here, all I've got to do is add this one, and we're going to do a little magic here to save time. So first I will attach this one, and then I think your biggest thing here is just make sure your gifts are all going the same direction. And I'm going to add this one at the same time. And then we'll just have to do an all over press. And this, remember, is the bottom of your tree. So what you'll do when you sew this is just sew this by keeping this out of the way and then moving it over and sewing this. And same thing here. It really doesn't matter which way you press. I think pressing towards the taller ones is a little bit easier. Now from here, making sure your gifts are going straight up, you're going to take your fabric C strip. I'm going to find the center of the gift row, put a pin, find the center of the fabric C, line that up, line up the edges, and then pin throughout, and we're just going to add this. And this is going to be super easy. The last step will be the hardest, so we saved the hardest for the last. Set your seam, press to one side, and then we're going to take our fabric A squares, and on the wrong side we're going to draw a line from corner to corner. So you'll need a longer ruler to draw that line. Now this one, you're going to add this triangle to the top right and the top left, and here I'm just going to pin a ton of times. This is such a big rectangle that keeping it in place is really important. And really when I'm doing this, I'm just making sure this lines up and then this lines up. The more accurate that lines up, the more accurate the end result will be when you cut this part off. And just so you know, that is our final step, and it's going to be on page 3. Now we'll have to move back to my open toe foot. Okay, so now before we go on, I want to show you, when you flip this up, this point should match, and when you flip this point should match. And you can see this one matches and this one's a little bit off, so I need to go a little bit in. So you can see I stitched a little bit to left of the line, and I think that's from the bulk of this, so we're going to go back over it and just sew a little bit closer. And you'll notice I didn't try to line that up before. I just tried to line my square and hoped it matched, and one matched and one didn't, so I'm just going to make that adjustment before I do the next step. And that looks a lot better. So from here, trim 1/4 inch away, set your seam, press to one side, and then from here you can trim it up if you want, or you can leave it like it is. I just like to get all the little trimmings off and just get it really nice and square. So like here, I just want to make sure it comes out even and it takes all those little fuzzies off. I'm going to make sure right here that corner is straight. And actually, if you put this Creative Grids 6.5 by 18.5, this line right here goes right here, and that'll make that straight right there. And then on this long one, I'm just gonna make it really nice and straight. And that is tucked under the tree, which is your bottom row, and it should be 9.5 by 27.5. Thanks for joining me for part 1. I can't wait to see all the little trees that you guys make, and I'll see you next week for part 2. See you there.